Can people from other faiths have a relationship with God? Is Jesus the only way that you can have a relationship with God? And if so, what about Islam? Islam reveres Jesus as a prophet, but not the Son of God. These questions and more are exactly what we're talking about this week on the live show.
Kindred UMC live show features adults discussing adult topics, occasionally with adult language. It may not be suitable for young viewers. Please use discretion before watching.
Hello all! Welcome once again to the Kindred UMC pre-recorded live show, coming to you not live, but pre-recorded from my front room, aka Kindred Studio A. My name is Chris Hayden. I am the pastor of Kindred UMC.
I'm wearing a purple shirt.
I'm the trustee's chair, fun fact.
What are your names? People have to get to know you.
What's the name?
Preston. My name's Preston.
And I'm Brandon.
You guys are live.
And they're interchangeable, to be honest. Yeah. There's Parker's in there, Princeton.
Especially on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
All right, since I have to do everything, and it's because I am smarter and better than anyone else. That one's for you, Papa Preston.
I don't like this seat.
Preston told me his dad thinks I'm arrogant.
And I just stated that.
I hear your face is turning red too. You're like, it's not wrong, but
that was. I believe my very quick response was like, yeah, of course I am.
It's like getting an F on a test. You saw the test. You're like, this is not happening. And then she's like, 18. I mean, did you? And you're like, yeah.
That's bad.
Well,
this one went real bad.
I know what you're gonna say. Now just let me take this.
Okay, so we've got a couple of. I'm going to do a series. If I planned it better, I would have timed it with the Barbie movie release. But we're going to do a series in a few weeks about women of the Bible and how the Bible actually has a pretty strong feminist message in it. But I'm not
message contrary to popular belief.
Yeah,
not like it's trying to be.
Yeah, not like aggressively feminine. But anyway, we'll get into that later. I'm not good at planning, and I didn't do a good job, and so it'll be later by the time Barbie movie is completely out of everyone's memory. But in the meantime, we have a couple of weeks to just kind of like we got to do, and so I thought we would maybe do some fun things. So to start with, we're going to talk about other religions. Is God a God of other religions? If you're not Christian, can you have a relationship with God? Those kinds of things. And then next week, so that'll be this week, next week, we're going to talk about aliens. And for us here today, we're going to record it in real time. So even though it'll come out weeks later, we're just going to continue the conversation. So I'm going to use the same text for both of them. So this is a text from the Gospel of John. It's chapter 14, verses 1 through... and it sounds like this. By the way, this is a text that we often read at funerals, just apropos of nothing.
Splendid.
Yeah. Do not let your heart... This is Jesus talking to his disciples. Do not let your hearts be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me. In my Father's house there are many dwelling places. If it were not so, would I have told you that I go to prepare a place for you? And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and will take you to myself, so that where I am, there you may be also. And you know the way to the place where I am going. Thomas, the doubter, said to him, Lord, we do not know where you are going. How can we know the way? And Jesus said to him, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. If you know me, you will know my Father also. From now on, you do know him and have seen him. So, first of all, before we unpack the text a little bit, what is your general just starting place on the idea of people of other faiths or people of like no faith, and relating to God, having some kind, after, whether it's afterlife or like, does God bless them? Is there grace in their lives? Is it possible to have a relationship with God if you're Muslim or Hindu, or like where's your starting place with that?
It boils down to it's a choice. Everybody's a human. You got things you don't know about yourself and things around you. A lot of people like to lean on a belief or a faith system. The one I chose is Christianity because I think it agrees most with me. And, you know, there's the death thing that's not fun to talk about. And it's talked about almost blatantly and to a point in the Bible, in the Jesus story.
I think if we tried hard enough, we could make it fun to talk about.
Well, I'm saying, I'm trying to speak, I'm speaking for a person that is like me. And it is hard to wrap my head around people that either one, don't get it or haven't been told about it. And then, you know, a mixture.
Specifically Christianity?
Christianity itself, yeah. Because if, you know, you see it as an eject button or a get out of jail free card, that's a valid argument, but there's just a lot of buts I think I have.
So let me boil it down to an even more like black and white kind of question. If you don't believe specifically that Jesus is the Son of God and that is the way that you relate to God, can you relate to God, or are you doomed to a godless life? What do you think?
Not quite black and white, but I think.
Well, I mean, basically, it's like, do you have to believe in Jesus to have a relationship with God and be blessed by God?
Relationship, no. But be blessed and get the end goal, yeah, if it's black and white.
So you have to have a relationship with Jesus in your take on it. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. What about you, Brandon?
Can you do that again? Say yours again?
That's a fun little trick you did. Can you do that again?
So you can have a relationship with God but not believe Jesus is the way, or, you know, through Jesus, God is the way to, you know, eternal salvation or some kind of your end goal. Believe it's up in the clouds with everybody, or it's a peace of mind and solace that at the end of it,
like heaven and hell, afterlife.
Yeah. But the relationship part, he says blatantly through text, just, I'm here, I'm right here. And even if you don't believe in me, for the most part, I'm still going to be here. So there's always that caveat of, even if you don't believe the whole thing everyone else is, or my followers are, I'll either get to you in the end, or I guess we can talk about it, is what he's trying to say, if I put that correctly.
I think you made it more confusing.
Yeah.
Well, how about you, Brandon?
To answer the question, because what I think I'm hearing is like, if you were like an unreached people group that has not heard about Christianity, I think it's the opposite. Like, enjoy the blessings of.
I'll tell you what. Let's rule that out. Let's rule out.
It's not the great area we're diving into
not
today.
People who live in the Amazon who have never encountered.
Specifically, it's always them.
Let's talk specifically about people, broadly speaking, in the Western world.
Gotcha.
With, you know, all of the exposure to the Christian gospel, but have chosen like, no, that's not for me. I mean, what do you think? Do you think God is do you think they're doomed? Do you think God is actively at work in their lives? Do you think they can receive God's blessing and have a relationship with God, even if they're like, and a good example is Muslims, because Jesus is a part of Islamic faith, but Jesus is not the Messiah, Son of God, part of the Trinity. Jesus is merely one of the prophets, you know, still highly revered, but
I largely operated under the idea that the Abrahamic religion specifically all shared the same God. Just like
Yahweh.
Whatever you're gonna take from that is essentially the same, and there's no point arguing about it.
There's no point arguing.
Just like get over
well,
it.
I would say there is a point if the consequences are dire.
Right? I also think that if
but that's the kind of the decision that we have to
chose to
make
be
faith-wise.
Like, I'm not going to participate in religion, then I feel like you're as doomed as the rest of us who are just going to find out.
Yeah, and these all have like weird subtexts and like,
I have a good answer for that.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to say. So.
Well, that's why we're here. We're here to talk about the tough questions.
Well, I'm here to grow, Chris. Okay. I can't just tell Jonah he's doomed because he doesn't understand.
I mean, Jonah doesn't believe in Jesus at all.
I don't
He's
think,
a real hardcore atheist. He's like an aggressive atheist.
Yeah,
He believes
sure.
you're gone when you leave.
But-
Jonas
That's
the
what.
dog, by the way, just in case you don't know.
All dogs go to heaven. That's why
You all know that. It was proven in the movies.
Cartoon movie, yeah.
Um,
It's hard to say someone's doomed.
I think we're all dogs.
Well,
we're all little
you're
idiots and don't know.
definitely
we're all
a
gonna
dog.
find out and all dogs go to heaven.
Big
people
dog.
don't like it when I call my dog an idiot. I call him an idiot all the time. It's a term of endearment in the house.
Yeah. If you have a piece of bacon in your hand, is he going to pant at you? No. This one definitely is without fail.
So okay, we'll continue this. Let me put a pause on that. Let's talk about the text. So this is a text that is often used by far more fundamental understandings of Christianity that are like, if you don't believe in Jesus, you will burn in hell for all of eternity. God will torture you forever.
Like,
Um,
if you don't subscribe, that seems really aggressive. It's like getting late fees for a book you didn't check out from the library.
Yeah.
Well, so let me just put aside, let me just start by saying, especially within the Wesleyan understanding of God, the first and foremost thing, and Wesley, by the way, is the theologian that is responsible for essentially starting the Methodist Church. So Wesley leads with grace. God, the first and most important thing about God is that God is a God of grace. Now, what is grace? Grace is undeserved favor or like admiration or like, and you know, to put it in the most base terms, God loves you regardless. You don't have to earn it, even if you are like a psychopath and a killer, and like God's grace leads first. Now, of course, that has to come with, obviously, if you've ever studied the Bible, there's also this aspect of justice. That like, so God has like mercy, grace, and justice, you know? And how those two ideas are kept in tension together is kind of the essence of systemic theology, you know, systematic theology. This text that I read from John is often used to talk about and like as an entry point into the discussion we're having. Jesus says, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. One point of clarification that I think just slightly puts this into a different, just alters the discussion a little bit, is the way, the truth, and the life is a phrase that would have been used by the Jews of the time and still today to describe the Torah. It was like almost like a tagline for the law. The Torah is a Hebrew word for law, and it's generally the first 5 books of the Bible. And so another way of hearing that is Jesus saying, I am the law. Even though Thomas just said, how will we know the way? You know, it's almost like a turn of phrase. How will we know the way? Well, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. I'm the law. I'm the Torah.
He did
I am
that,
the fulfillment of the law.
a lot of things. He did it with communion. He did it with
the
coming of things.
Jesus
like
is pretty popular for taking traditional things and turning them on their heads and like giving them new meaning and deepening our understanding of them. That's kind of his like go-to move. And he's doing it here again. And by the way, let me just say, it is not my goal to utterly convince anyone out of where they are, you know, like theologically speaking, what their beliefs are. However, giving new information, you know, may or may not change your mind. So the way, the truth, and the life is one of the elements that is important in interpreting this text. The other thing is, no one comes to the Father except through me. A lot of people are like, yeah, so you better believe in Jesus, which is, to be honest, a major thrust of the Gospel of John. Gospel of John was written about 80 or 90 years after Jesus was born, so probably not a first-hand account, probably written to address more contemporary issues. And one of the contemporary issues was Christians who were not called Christians at that point. They were Jews who were believing that Jesus was the Messiah, were starting to be expelled from temples. And there's a lot of that in the Gospel of John. John's Gospel is filled with people who believe in Jesus and then they get expelled from the temple. That didn't start happening until after Jesus died. That's not actually historically real in the time of Jesus. But that was one of the issues that the Gospel of John was like trying to address. And so there's a lot of stories about that. And so there is this emphasis of like affirming that Jesus actually is the divine sent Messiah, the Son of God, person of the Trinity. There's a lot of that. Another interpretation of this particular text is no one comes to the Father except through me, which means that whether you know Jesus' name or not, if you have a relationship with God, you're going through Jesus. Not necessarily that you have to know Jesus, you know?
It's the way by default.
Yeah, because and especially if he's using the description of the Torah, which is the way that people would understand the nature of God, and he's saying, I am that also. Like, I am the fulfillment of that. And so it's impossible to reach God without going through me. So there's something about that too. So first of all, that's a lot of kind of broad intellectual stuff. What's just your first reaction to that? What do you make of that information? Does that affect your kind of take on things? Where are you?
Reaffirms what I thought before. A little bit, just like you're gonna be okay.
Yeah. Also,
if we're gonna lead with grace, and we're assuming that the way forward is now through Christ, but Christ says, "Oh my God, Johnny, your eyes are so red. That was horrific."
He's an old man.
Oh, I didn't like that. It's like if this was the doorway, I've taken that doorway. I am now the doorway. You're gonna come through this, no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it sounds like it's always. Well, one, it's with men, so I can't imagine. There's no way, and then they're just yelling at him, and he's like, "Would you? Okay, I'm this. Just can we get that far at least? Because I think."
So it's important to understand this isn't a realistic account. This isn't somebody in the corner recording a real conversation. This is a story or a document that was written almost a century after Jesus was born. And it's more about it's almost like, so Richard III is a play written by Shakespeare, not a historical thing. He wrote a fiction. It's almost like historical fiction to teach a point. Well, that's more what John is.
The underlying message is,
not to say that it's not based on true events.
Yeah.
There really was a Jesus. If you're asking me, he really was the Son of God. He really was the Messiah. He was crucified. He was resurrected. But the details, this is a historical fiction to try and talk about the teachings that Jesus actually passed on to his disciples, more than it is let me give a direct account of every single thing that happened.
It's also like giving the okay and understanding that if you do believe in Jesus, you don't have to be cast out of the temple, the thing you just said.
I think that's the main thrust of what's going on here. It's more about he's more addressing the divisiveness of hey man, just because we disagree on this doesn't mean that you have. Now maybe that's a little too. That's not fair to say. The writer of the Gospel of John absolutely is no, Jesus is the Messiah, and for those of you who disagree with it, you're wrong. We're right. He is doing that. It's a strong stance. Yeah, he is doing that. But he's also kind of addressing but just because you disagree with us, don't kick us out. Right. We're still worship. So here's what I'm coming around to. I think that the broader message of the Gospel of John is actually the opposite of what usually people use this text to justify. I think the Gospel of John is actually saying, hey, just because we can't agree on this guy doesn't mean that people should be divided and excluded. Mm-hmm. We can still worship Yahweh and participate in the temple life and even if we think Jesus is the Messiah and you think he's not, like, we can still worship Yahweh.
Yeah, but that's hard and full of time and effort I don't have to spend, and I have
it requires like empathy and understanding.
Yeah,
and
when
listening,
I can just tell someone, no, you're wrong, and out, so I don't have to deal with you.
Yeah.
And deal with is a huge term.
Yeah, right. So I genuinely think that this is really a message that's in the opposite direction. I think it's more Wesleyan. It is an insistence that the grace of God is sufficient to overcome our disagreements. And if you're genuinely worried that God is going to eternally torture somebody forever for not knowing the right answer on a quiz, then I think you have a wild misunderstanding of who God is. And that is a problem that you should probably deal with. So grace abounds, trust in God, love thy neighbor, whether it's a person who agrees with you or disagrees with you. And God knows we need more of that in this context, in this era of like people. Yeah, you.
That's why he's here.
I don't know. Yeah, I don't even know what that. But yeah, so
Proving a point, to be honest.
Yeah.
If one person's angry, it's kind of fun to go like, he's mad. What are you mad at?
Yeah. So love thy neighbor, love God, trust that God is gracious and loving, and
that's a hard one.
Don't get all up your butt about things. All right. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Next week it's daily. Amen.